Five, four, three, two, one. Thunderbirds are go. By the way, it's the original Thunderbirds premiered on September 30th, 1965. So we're basically
Wow.
at
Hmm.
at a real anniversary. So welcome to my guests
All
today,
right.
Jennifer Nelson, Richard Malone, and Robert Swanson from Izzy and CNX. Welcome to the Private Equity Funcast. How is everybody
Thank
doing
you.
today?
Very good. Thank you.
Great.
So
Mhm.
Jen, I'll start with you. Just a quick intro. We're going to talk about the details here today, but as the lead dog, as it were, at Izzy Software, give us a little background here on Izzy and how we came to get involved with Richard and Rob.
Yeah, so gosh, I don't like to say lead dog, but yeah, CEO of Izzy Software, and Izzy is buying smaller founder-led companies in the IBM I and IBM Z space. That's the really creative name, Izzy, IZZI. Uh-huh. Uh,
Hold on. We had quite a bit of, there was a lot of go round. We could probably pull the list of names out. I mean, I think we spent more time arguing over the name than we actually did
I
buying
know,
companies. There were a
I
lot of
know.
opinions on that one. Yeah.
We just kept it simple, right? So Izzy Software and bringing them together under one umbrella so that we can integrate IP and create some new stuff. We can maybe even start cross-pollinating with technology being ported over to the other platform where there's a business need. And this gives customers longevity with the investment that they've already spent with the portfolio companies, but it also provides opportunity for employees to grow their career and jump onto other pieces of technology that might interest them or continue growing their career in other areas. So getting everybody together under one umbrella, creating a larger company, and then providing a solution suite of products that customers can grow with at a good price.
Excellent. Wow, you had that down, even though we put you on the spot. You had that down to a science, man. I'm impressed. I would do a small round of applause. And so,
Pretty
uh,
straightforward.
I think the newest acquisition on the Izzy side is CNX Corp, and we have the two founders here, Richard and Rob. Welcome, coming to us from parts unknown. I think we're in Austin and Costa Rica today. Is that right? Did I get that right? And
That is
Jen's also
correct.
in
That's
Austin,
right.
and I'm
Pure
I'm
Vita.
zipping in from Denver here. So isn't technology great, as they say?
Hmm.
So welcome both of you. Rich and Rob, just give a quick intro to your background here and talk about how you started CNX. Like, what was because I sort of look at this as the aha moment is how did you decide, one, I love software, this is what I want to do, and two, decided to go out on your own and start your own company? Because that's a bold move. Not everybody has I don't know, has the gumption to do it.
I mean, it's sort of a funny story. I'm Richard Malone, by the way, for people listening, managing director of CNX for 29 years. Rob and I started it in 1996, which just seems forever ago. Um, but
Not to me. Most of my portfolio, yeah, that's
okay.
like, oh wow, you guys are youngins. Okay.
But the honest story of how we started CNX was we Rob and I were both working at a packaging company in Lake Forest, Illinois, together, and I think we'd worked together there for 2 or 3 years. And we just got mad at our boss one day and decided to quit with no plan. And CNX just sort of got born out of nothing, with no plan and no money.
It's like a
And
Jerky Boys reference. We had a problem with our boss.
So
had a problem with my boss. Um,
literally you guys were both doing software development. Is that, if you set the stage a little bit, you're both programmers and your boss was dumb, or was it really like a Dilbert boss? The pointy-headed boss would come in with ridiculous requirements.
I'm not going to say anything too bad about the boss, just in case he's listening, but yeah, my background, I have a degree in physics. Rob can talk about his background too, but he has a sort of a technical background as well. But in the 1990s, all the good jobs were just sort of coming out in information technology, right? That's where all the jobs were. And I really liked working with systems and everything. So that's how Rob and I sort of got started in working with IBM Power Systems and IBM, which we can talk more about later. But yeah, that's how we sort of wound up working together as programmers on that platform. And if you remember in the 1990s, it's almost like you couldn't fail, right? Like there was so many jobs, there was so much opportunities in this just massively growing space that you just, no matter what you did, you couldn't fail. So we were very bold, and we had we had no fear. Like we knew we could go work at different companies or whatever. So we just thought, what the heck? Why don't we just start this company doing professional services work for IBM I operating system on power systems, which is what our experience
AS400.
AS400 at the time, which later became IBM I. IBM has loved to rename things over the years. So for the old timers, it's AS400.
Yeah,
And
I still call it that, Richard. Like if you're Googling it, or now do we have to say chat GPTing it now? You find more stuff under the 400 because it did change its name. IBM did change the name a bunch of times over now it's like a mouthful to get the whole thing out, but you're right, man.
It's like New Coke.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's a long story between that origin story and today. A lot of things happened and a lot of things changed in the industry over there. So it's sort of an interesting story. But I think probably I'll leave it there and let Rob introduce himself, and then we can sort of dig into more about the history if you'd like.
Well, my background was in industrial engineering, and I was focused on introducing AS400 programs to the shop floor, which was kind of a novel concept back then, to go from pen and paper and filling out forms to actually typing production as you made it. And that became the genesis of our new company, which we had to come up with a name for the company. We were trying to back into an acronym that sounded cool. So CGI was our first choice, but that was already taken for Computer Geeks International. So we settled on CNX, which was Computer Nerds Extraordinaire, or extraterrestrial, depending on your.
It sounds like the name of a railroad, though. If you say CNX Corp, I always think.
You get calls all the time from people trying to reach their railroads.
Well, wait, I have to, not to cut you off, Rob, but I have to add there that CNX was like literally the only 3-letter acronym that was not taken. I remember standing outside of the registration office, just going back and forth. Is this one taken? Is that one taken? I don't know. For some reason, we had our heart set on a 3-letter acronym.
Well, like we spun out of a prior firm called Chicago Growth Partners, and which was in turn spun out of William Blair. And the senior partners at that, when they spun out, they said, "Hey, let's call ourselves Chicago Growth Partners, and it'll be CGP.com." Then they came to me, and it's like, dude, you got to find the domain name first, like a 3-letter domain name. You get zero shot of getting that in this day, and this is now like 2004, right? So it was even harder. So I ended up, the CGP had gotten bought. It was some small company that it was in the energy services. It got rolled up in a bunch of other companies. And I just cold called the marketing person and said, "Hey, I don't know if you're still using this domain, but we'd buy it for $5,000. I bought it literally for $5,000, a 3-letter domain name. And the network admin, when he handed it over, he's like, "I don't know how you convinced them to sell this for $5,000, but good luck to you, man." So that's now that's worth something. Those short names, man, those are worth big dollars.
Yeah, well, we were too cheap. That's why we're CNXcorp.com and not CNX.com, because some guy was squatting on that site too.
CNX.com was, I don't know what it is today, to be honest, but at the time in 1999, I remember offering the guy who ran a bulletin board. Like, I don't even know if listeners will ever know what that is, but he ran a bulletin board on CNX.com, and I offered him $10,000 in 1999 for it, and he turned me down and told me, "Don't ever call him again." So I'm like, all right, it's CNXcorp.com forever then.
Yeah, work on your approach.
It feels like if the guy's still alive, we should just call him. I mean, I know I think 29 years is enough, right? I mean, never, Connery came back for one more Bond film. We figured we'd just ask you one more time,
Jim, I think you should give that a shot.
Do
that for us.
Yeah, you've got a good track record.
Well, you guys missed the fun 2 weeks ago. We had an event. We had a Parker Gale event we had to go to, and because of the surgery, I had teeth falling out. So there's a guy with one eye and teeth falling out. I'm not sure that would be, so he might actually call the cops rather than sell me the domain name.
Yeah.
So you guys spun out starting in services.
So and along came Y2K, so it became a natural, easy, pulling apples off the tree sort of situation for service work. We did that for a while, and then lo and behold, year 2000 came along, and we needed to find a new purpose. So we took some work I had done in a prior employer that was basically, like I said, putting shop floor interfaces putting AS400 interfaces on the shop floor, and turned that into our product called Atomic. And that carried us along for quite some time. It's very green screen, old school 1990s, look and feel to the package, kind of a manufacturing execution system. But we knew as the years went by that interface was getting long in the tooth, and I'll hand it back to Richard on this because this was really more of his pet project. Finding a new UI for Atomic is what birthed our.
But when you think about it, Rob, like I worked for DEC and I was on the manufacturing side too. I mean, literally there were no terminals on a shop floor in those days. It was literally paperwork, or in the worst case, those reams of paperwork, the bound, the big bound 132 wide column things that people carried around. I mean, it's hard to believe today. Like you would never see that today, but then that was the common way.
Right. Yeah. And there was a revolutionary concept, getting real-time feedback from the production floor as a planner scheduler to actually know where you are, and, within minutes of on every machine on your shop floor. It was a valuable tool for people that knew that they needed that kind of data.
Yeah,
as opposed to doing the paper chase where you get, your production data the next day if you're lucky. And
right. Well, how do you do just-in-time inventory?
Right.
Because we would literally see the guys who would get the sheets at the beginning of the day and they'd be marking off stuff by hand, which is just like that's just not the way to run a shop floor. But nobody would do that today. But that was the state of the industry post.
It was definitely cutting edge and daunting to get. You imagine trying to teach a 5250 interface to someone who's never even worked a computer.
Oh, God, yes.
But we were able to push it through.
Yeah, well, I would say from the year after the Y2K, so let's say 2001 to about the 2008 timeframe, this Atomic software that Rob's talking about really sustained us. And it, I can't remember what you said about it, how it worked, Rob, but the interface is an old school type interface where it's text-based interface, like terminal-based, not like a web-based application or an advanced user interface. So around 2006, 2007, and this was really a pivotal moment in our history, is that I and another guy in our company started looking at like, what would it take to bring this Atomic software to a better user interface, like a web-based interface? So you could run it in your browser
So what year was this?
This was about 2000, end of 2006,
okay,
and about 2007. So what we started doing is we started evaluating vendors' software for the AS400, which is now IBM. And there were a lot of vendors at the time offering modernization. That's what we call it in the, this industry, is modernization software. What tools can I use to bring this old school software into a modern user interface? And I acquired and installed probably like 4 or 5 different of the leading vendors' software at that time.
Now, were they mostly screen scrapers?
Some of them were screen scrapers. Others were more like client server type interfaces where you had to do some work involved to redo the workflow and such. But the bottom line of all that analysis was we hated all of them. Like one of the
shocking, right?
Yeah, right, exactly right. And and if you look at some of those vendors' products today, they still look the same as they did in 2006, right? They call them modernization, but there's nothing modern about their user interfaces. But anyway, but one of the, so we started looking at like, well, how could we build a modernization? Could we just find a way to modernize our software on our own, right? We were not looking at it in terms of like, hey, we want to create a modernization product. We were just wanting to bring our own text-based green screen software to the web interface, and we were just going to develop it on our own, right? And so I started looking at different ways to do user interfaces in the browser, and I came across a framework called EXTJS, which is now owned by Sencha and Idera. And, that's basically a JavaScript framework. So instead of just developing pages in HTML, you've got really interactive components.
But that was pretty early on in those
JavaScript. It was very early on. So that was like a eureka moment for me. Like I looked at, literally, Jim, within 5 minutes of exploring this EXTJS, I just knew that every web-based application would work like this in the future. I didn't know if it would take 2 years, 5 years, or 10 years, but you could just tell that that's how things were going to be done in the future because the examples that I was looking at were so good. So I showed it to the rest of the team. And we just decided to go all in with it. But again, we weren't looking at creating our own product with it, a modernization product. We were just looking at bringing our own software to you know, to our customers with that interface.
Sure.
So we started,
But that's still, I mean, that's still Wild West days because there wasn't even really standardized JavaScript engines and all the browsers. I mean, we were just coming out of the,
Yeah, we're only like 2 years beyond the invention of a lot of that stuff.
yeah, the
yeah.
IE versus
Hmm.
Netscape battle, like that, all of that is just,
Hmm.
just rationalized out. So there wasn't, I mean, that up till that point, the first people that did any kind of browser-based stuff, they might have been
Yeah.
doing stuff on the back end, but they were just shipping for the most part, just vanilla HTML to the screen. It didn't really interact very well in the early going, and they were also really
Hmm.
inconsistent. So I mean, at that time, I think people don't realize at that time that's a big jump because whatever you picked may not have, whatever libraries you picked may not have made it. I mean, there are plenty of people who learned the Angular 1 lesson and then, oh, wow, Angular 2 doesn't work anything like Angular 1,
Yeah.
write all
It
that
was
stuff,
certainly
right?
a risk.
Right.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
certainly early on. I mean, none of us knew, right? And that was still we were still coming out of the Power Builder of the,
Hmm.
Power Builder was the COBOL, the 90s. We were still coming out of that. And there wasn't, I think Cold Fusion was probably the most popular
Hmm.
web-based development platform. I'm doing air quotes for those people who are not seeing
Hmm.
here at the time. So that was a big deal to make that decision, and you did it in 5 minutes. That's not bad.
Well, the decision took 5 minutes that, hey, well, I want to really see, but I mean, think about this for a sec, because it's the craziest thing now that I think back about it. It was like, you've got something like EXTJS, an advanced JavaScript framework for the browser, and then you've got the AS400, what is now the IBMI. These two things are so far apart from one another, you would say, forget about it. It's like those two things are not working together. So basically, our secret sauce then for our what is now our premier product, which is called Valence for IBMI, was we built everything necessary on the IBMI to make that user interface, the XTJS, talk to the IBMI to work together, right? And and we worked from beginning of 2007, and our first release was, I think, May of 2008, if I
Yeah.
believe correct, was Valence 1.0.
RPG World in Las Vegas.
Yeah, and but the biggest part of the story that I left out was, we originally started creating this just to bring our own atomic software to that web interface. But we were having a meeting with our third party outside marketing firm, and they're like, "Hey, what do you guys got anything like going on really cool that we could like showcase in our marketing for efforts for you?" And we're like, "Oh yeah, we're working on this new interface for our atomic software. Let's show it to you." And we demoed it to them, and they were like so blown away. They're like, "Did you guys ever think about like packaging this up to think like other companies who want to modernize old software, uh, you know, want to use?" And like, I remember looking at Rob and thinking like,
We're kind of
no,
dumbfounded.
we
Like,
never thought of that. Like, we actually never thought of that.
Well, the
So you can
marketing
tell
guys
right away,
earned their
we're
money,
not
I
like,
guess.
like you can tell right away, we're not genius business people. We're just, we brute force everything. Um, but anyway, we were like, all right, well, we'll give it a try. We're like, we already created it, right? We already put the effort into creating it
Sure.
for our own use. So we did a little bit more work and packaged it up for a general audience, created an installer, and it so quickly got larger than the atomic software itself. We still have customers on that old atomic software. We don't really sell it anymore. It's sort of like deprecated. Now, our whole focus of our company between 2008 and today is just selling the Valence software to help customers modernize old applications and to create new ones too.
So I mean, I think that's the interesting part that, because we had a wide range of people that listen, to the podcast. I mean, I started out in PDP 11s, right? So, you know, I think you can almost argue that the modern computer era started in the mid 70s, right? When you started to get the explosion of, before that was some mainframes, I mean, IBM had a different mid-range system, right? System 36, System 38. But, by the time you hit 1980, things were starting to consolidate, but it was the explosion of all these other vendors, the sort of market just sort of grew up. And I think a lot of people don't realize, why would somebody pick an IBMI as their back end, or running their database, running their code? What people don't understand is to get to the equivalent functionality from reliability, you can do it in open systems with Linux, but you're going to write a lot of to produce that same level of reliability, you're going to write a lot of you're going to write a lot of software yourself, and it's not something that's easy to do. And look at all the, I mean, even at the high end, like IBM CICS on the mainframe, I mean, DEC tried their own ACMS that didn't go anywhere. Tuxedo, I don't know if you guys have ever tried to write in the old AT&T Tuxedo stuff that's sort of like honk if you've been married to Liz Taylor. I don't know how many people have owned Tuxedo. I think, went to BEA, or what's the else, then BEA, then Oracle, like everybody sort of owned that. But I think people don't realize that, well, they would think, well, why don't I just get rid of this, this big, piece of iron that I'm running, even though it's not physically that big anymore, and go to an open system. And I think part of the problem is the stuff that runs in the open system, we're trying to do everything yourself, just is too difficult to do. And my assumption is your customers see that. I mean, they're probably on it already, on that platform, but they see the reliability of it and getting a more modern front end. Because again, this is the thing we sort of deal with now. We got a generation of I got, 24, 22, and an 8-year-old. They can all use an iPhone interface or a browser interface. You hand them anything else, like, I got a VT100 in my office, and they look at it like the RCA dog. They turn their head like, how does that thing connect to the internet? I'm like, it doesn't. The internet didn't exist.
Old terminal-based interfaces are just not an option anymore. If you have any turnover in your company whatsoever, the learning curve for those type of interfaces for people that are not familiar, they're just way too long. You need a modern web-based application. I mean, New users, when they come into a company, are expecting the software to work like the applications that they use all day long, like social media apps, or when they log into their bank. They're expecting to interact with their business software in the same kind of user interface that they're used to.
We had one exception. Because we own SharePoint, which is accounting software for lawyers, and also runs on the IBM I. The data entry clerks on the GL side, they don't use any of the browser interface because they want the 5250 speed. They literally don't even look at the screen. They just use the extended, like they literally could type so much faster than they can in a browser interface that we had to keep a few screens for that data entry just for those people.
Well, that's an important thing to point out, because if you can get through the learning curve of those types of interfaces, they are extremely fast for interacting with, so like, it's almost like, okay, put them on the graphical UI right away, and then over time, maybe they can learn the green screen or the text-based interface, and they can improve their performance by using those. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, which is again, I mean, not surprising when you watch them work. Like you sit and watch them, like how fast these clerks are they're literally looking at a log. They're not even looking at the screen, and they don't have to, because they know, they're tabbing their way through. They own all the function keys. They can
It's a
work
rote
really
process for them.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely brute process for them for sure. All right. So now you're all in on Valence. So you managed to convince, Rob to go along for this ride with you. Right. So take us from, 2008 up until, the time we approached you and you said, hey, should we do something? So you've been running this thing from, in the Valence world from '08 going forward. Take us the quick journey that brings us up to 2024, 2025.
Well, one of the big learning curves that we had was we assumed that everyone would share our enthusiasm for learning HTML5 and JavaScript and getting that to work with their RPG programs. That turned out to be a little rosy. Most RPG programmers are, 10 feet deep in to-do lists and fighting fires all day long. So learning a new technology was not in the cards. So one of the big evolutions with Valence after we launched it in 2008 was tools to help coders not have to do coding, or I should say RPG programmers not having to do front-end HTML5 and JavaScript coding. So that's how the low-code app builder tool came about. Initially as a query tool, and then it became a full-out, application builder.
But that gets us to one of the arguments, Rob, I think in the industry is there such thing as a full stack developer? And
very few.
My argument is, okay, then you stink at three things instead of being good at one, right? Like database, middle layer and user interface, they're kind of three different things. And yes, there are some, there are some, what I don't know, call them one-offs or, Mensa guys, people that can sort of do that. But in our experience, somebody who's done a bunch of back-end RPG probably isn't even interested in user interface design, right? And trying to learn the intricacies of JavaScript and HTML5 layout and the DOM model, like, you're right. With
Right.
the list of stuff they got to do, like, why am I doing this? And
And
especially,
you leave a guy to his own devices to start designing screens when his whole world has been 5250 based, and you get screens that look like green screens. So
yes,
that's one of the benefits of a low code tool is it kind of gives you guardrails. It's going to make sure that the visual layer is consistent between applications.
I think that's a Woody Allen joke, right? I think it was Noel Coward bought the rights to My Fair Lady, removed the music and dancing, and turned it back into Pygmalion. And that's exactly what, if you have back end COBOL, Fortran, RPG people, and you start them designing screens, they're going to design engineer like screens. It's a
Exactly.
different skill for sure.
Their blood runs
100%.
green. They can't help
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
So now you're going along the way. You're starting to, you're introducing the product. So you're going from just pure consulting on the 400 to now you're selling your Valence product. You're learning that, getting RPG people to design screens can be challenging. So where did you feel like you hit the groove that people really understood the product and and you felt like you were going in the right direction?
I mean, I think that feeling came pretty quickly after releasing Valence in 2008. But I would say probably not till about 2012 or 2015 did we really it became to the point where it was self-sustaining, like we had enough customers on using the product that the maintenance was healthy and that support. So it was sort of like the bootstrapping got a lot more juicy at that point. So we then had the resources to pump in what Rob was talking about, like put a lot of development effort into that low code app building tool that's part of Valence now. And it's just the most popular feature today of the software. That's what drives most of the sales. So I mean, by 2015, so like say for the last 10 years, we became significantly profitable and had a lot of potential acquirers approach us to talk to us. But when the conversation started, when those conversations started, they invariably, up until Jen at Izzy Software approached us, invariably those questions were like, how many customers do you have? Like how long will they stay on maintenance? And you could get the feeling that they just wanted to sort of like milk the existing customer base and maintenance and stop putting more effort into the product, like one of the acquirers where software goes to die, basically. So we were never really interested in doing that because we were still having more sales and we were still growing and still really enthusiastic about growing the product and adding features and so forth. And then
We all know, Richard, who we're talking about, who we invented. My computer associates invented the where software goes to die. Now I know HP's taken a hard run at them in recent years and being the place that software goes to die, but that was historically the CA business model, right? They pick products with decent install base and they sort of cut, engineering, down to the bone and, jacked up maintenance. And, it was a financial model. It was, when we sold Ingress went public and merged with Aspen, eventually got sold to CA. And that was their success model. And that was basically, they had enough customers. They just milked it. It's a standard private equity way to do things.
it's a common scenario these days. Yeah. And something we just weren't, Rob and I felt like we had a lot more runway to go in our careers and just never really entertained it. And to be honest, when Jen at Izzy approached us, we were not looking to be sold at that time, but she presented a vision of what they wanted to do with the Valence software. Potentially created a Valence for IBM Z, and put a lot more effort into it. We don't have, up until recently, we didn't have any like sales force. We were just like a bunch of technical guys just showing customers how it worked and let them make their own decisions. So like having a sales force and adding people that can help us with the development and it was a story of what we could do with the product in the future. Also, maybe if they acquire other IBM I or Z firms, maybe use our Valence software as a way to modernize those older products into the future. So it was something really exciting to Rob and myself and our broader staff as well. And so we thought about it seriously and thought, well, an opportunity like this may never come again. Because in all of our years, this was the first time anyone ever approached us with a vision of what they wanted to do to grow our software, not to just milk the existing customer base, basically like the where software goes to die scenario, So we decided, and of course, meeting yourself and then meeting Jen and the rest of the team really helped solidify that, we built a trust over a certain number of months and just decided to move forward with it.
Look,
And it's been great so far.
you don't need to give me any kudos. We know, despite me, you thought it was a good opportunity working with Jen. That's I'm the before Richard. It's like I'm the before, Jen's the after. It's like, oh boy, that guy's bad. Like Jen's pitch is even better after people have talked to me, right? So I mean, I think I think that brings us to a couple of key things. I'd love to hear. Couple of quick questions, right? So based on what this vision is, and we believe in it, we think there's tons of runway. I feel like even though IBM's terrible at marketing, sorry, Big Blue. I mean, my dad worked for IBM. They were terrible at marketing, right? But they built good products, and I feel like they've put a lot more effort into both the I platform and the Z platform in recent years, because I think they've sort of realized it's not going anywhere, right? And now I think as we look at 3-tier, do any customers really care what's on the back end of their system other than the reliability, the scalability, like a lot of that's hidden, when you have the user interface, and, that's why move it off the I when you don't need to, is a big, I mean, point of fact, SharePoint, I don't know how many millions of lines of RPG code we had, like zero value in moving it. It's all posting, posting for accounting systems. Those rules have not changed since we invented it. I mean, yeah, you got a different general ledger. It's all configuration, but it hasn't changed. So why would you rewrite that stuff? So here's where we are, as we sit in 2025. What do you guys think the biggest shift is going to be? Where do you think the growth is going to be, or what the opportunities are going to be on the I platform over the next 5 to 10 years?
Well, I mean, it's already started. I think there's been significant growth in the last 3 years. And I personally, now, what I say might be somewhat anecdotal. I don't necessarily have the definitive answers, and so it could be just a guess. But I think having all these IBM Power Systems go to the cloud, a lot of customers are moving to the cloud, has really, really helped. Because in the old days, you remember we used to maintain big server rooms with a lot of specialized air conditioning.
Big beige box.
Yeah, and the people that ran all that stuff are retiring, and companies are like, well, who's going to run all this stuff? But in the meantime, in the last 5 years, all the other servers are already moved to the cloud, but now IBM has a really good offering now, and there's a lot of good cloud services out there that will and then once it's in the cloud and it's just another service on the network, it's like, why would I even mess with this? Like you said, Jim, it's been working for decades. The rules haven't changed. Why would I mess with it? There's no reason to, right? The user interface is a different story, and that's where CNX comes in, right? But the back end and the need for the server doesn't change. These IBM I systems, these power systems, they just work. I mean, they are just so unbelievably reliable. And a lot of customers we deal with have a mix of different servers.
Sure.
IBM Power Systems being one of them. And just like we're always hearing all these stories on, we're having this meltdown of this server and that server, but the IBM I is not affected. You have customers that have like these ransomware attacks. We've had, I think in the last, say, 5 years, and Rob, you can correct me wrong, we had 2 customers that had ransomware attacks where the IBM I was the only systems not affected, right? So
at least 2.
These, I mean, like banks, they just have to run systems like this.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to run systems on anything else that's not as stable. So I don't really see that customers have a choice but to stick with them if they already have them. And I think there's evidence that new customers are coming to the platform. In my experience, the only time we have customers actually leaving the platform is after, ironically, an acquisition. Okay. So you've got maybe a smaller, medium-sized company acquired by a large firm. They don't know anything about these platforms. They want to move everything over to, and you got no choice, right?
Right.
But it happens in the reverse too. We have customers that are using IBM I and they acquire smaller companies and they bring them on, so then they need to expand the use of it. So it's happening in both directions. We very, very rarely will get customers to say, look, we're going off IBM Power Systems because we just don't like it anymore, or it's costing too much, because the total cost of ownership is actually quite low if you sit down and do it, because you have a lot of shops where you've got like 2 guys running this whole gigantic system that's doing millions of transactions a year, Um, and so the total cost of ownership, I think, is really low when you do those calculations in comparison to the other platforms. So, I mean, I don't know what more I could say about that. I mean, this IT industry is like, when you say, where is it going in 10 years? I mean, things are changing so rapidly, and they have changed so rapidly. I feel like if you try to predict out more than 2 or 3 years, it's just like you don't know what's going to happen. We haven't
Well,
even talked about AI either.
right.
Like, so many things could be different even 2, 3 years from now. You just don't know. You just
Well,
got to be flexible.
look, we all learned this from other than the software industry goes from, or software and hardware goes from centralizing to decentralizing and back again. That kind of becomes the thing over time. But if you look at it, look, we all thought client server was probably the end all be all end all, right? And
Mhm.
relational databases being powerful enough to be your main data store in a lot of cases, because in the 80s you could use it as like a little bit of a toy. It wasn't really a toy. You could do some analytics in, but you couldn't run your transaction systems on a relational database. They just didn't, right? So you get to client server, and that's going to be the very last thing. Oh, okay. Now
Mhm.
browsers. Browsers are going to be the very last thing we actually ever have to worry about. Oh, mobile. Well, mobile will be the very last thing. I think, to your point, Richard, we just don't know. I mean, AI has taken the world by storm over the last couple of years. I don't think any of us know where it's going to settle out, other than I like being in this side of AI, meaning more of a customer of AI than trying to build these large language models. I mean, I think people are going to lose their shirts on that, because there's only going to be a finite number of winners, and it's at the end of the day, the LLMs are just math and vector databases. Like, nobody can really own the rights to
Mhm.
math and vector databases, right? We're in the catbird seat, being able to use things like ChatGPT or an open source LLM model like Llama. That is fantastic. I wouldn't want to be building the gazillion-dollar data centers that I needed to run that stuff. That's for darn sure. And I'm not even I'm not even going to talk about blockchain, because there's just no reason for blockchain. Yes, we've gone right and left in our industry a few times. Those are our sins, I guess, right?
That's a separate Funcast.
Oh yes, no, you can't get me started on that, Richard. Like, you get me
Okay.
started on blockchain and cryptocurrency. It's like, other than fraud
Mhm.
and crime, I really don't see a reason for it. When you see people, we put it on the blockchain.
Mhm.
We could do all that much faster with a relational database that's secured. But yeah, okay, if you want to use the blockchain, knock yourself
All
out.
right.
So, couple of things. So, what technologies, books, frameworks, movies have influenced your life to get you where you are today? So over the last, kind of 29, 30 years of running this journey, what would you say have been seminal influences for you that have sort of shaped how you look at the world, or how you look at, how you look at software? And I give you all those categories because you won't believe some of the answers we get.
I mean, I'll let Rob see if we could take a stab at that one. Rob, this is a tough
Well,
one.
I could attest that my personal career direction was heavily driven by Matthew Broderick's War Games movie, and the
Which,
supercomputer that nearly triggered World War III.
the Whopper? Uh,
Yeah, the Whopper.
the
Very
Whopper.
good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. So
Would you like to play a game? Yeah,
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 exactly.
yeah,
So the
yeah.
Whopper directed me into IT. I think even though I was in an engineering curriculum, I gravitated towards computers and the human computer interaction that was illustrated in Whopper's near ending of the world. So
Yeah. See, now that to me seemed realistic, not necessarily that it was the end of the world, but the interactions with the machines seemed
mhm.
realistic for the time, because we're in the same age bracket. That was a seminal movie for me as well. Unlike Independence Day, where Will Smith just and Jeff Goldblum just say upload virus to, like,
Right.
anybody who's in software development loses their mind when they see that scene, because it doesn't work that way.
Right, yeah. Or in that Star Trek episode where Scotty picks up the mouse and says, "Computer, give me a transparent aluminum." Or
Exactly.
whatever.
Although we're closer to that now with ChatGPT than,
Right,
so
right,
you're
yes.
telling me an advanced civilization that comes to destroy Earth, you can simply open a telnet session and say upload virus and it destroys it. That's what you're telling me, right? And it's like, no, yeah, 100% no, right? Anyway, what is it? There's an old, if you're uh, a, uh, um, a Kurt Vonnegut fan, that was one of his short stories was an aliens race comes to planet Earth and they realize something's happening to destroy Earth, so they want to warn everybody. But on their planet, they only communicate by farting and tap dancing. So some aliens farting and tap dancing down the street, and the police like, like I don't know what this is. Right? That'd be the same thing. Like, how do you
Oh, that must be a
upload
really good
files?
communicator then.
Exactly, exactly. So
Nice.
that got you started. Along the way, as has something steered your direction, Rob, in terms of, was there any like, technical speaker, a movie that sort of set you down a path as you're kind of going along this thing?
Well, I think it's the positive feedback of getting good information quickly. My first job out of college was actually working in production planning and scheduling, and I was frustrated immediately by the lack of good data and the lack of resources to make good decisions. So that drives everything, and we've done in software development is basically helping users get information in a way they can digest it quickly. And there's a certain fulfillment that I get from seeing that actually effectively working. I would actually liken it, when I was in college, I worked at the newspaper. I was a writer and editor, and watching people around the campus reading that information that I wrote, I just got a kind of a thrill from that. And I feel like software is just another way of manifesting that same kind of satisfaction. Just seeing people interacting with your product is very thrilling for me.
Yeah, I think most developers would tell you the same thing. It's like, that's why it's important. I mean, we look at it as got to get it out there in the world, because the last thing you want is software developers work on something that never gets out and sees the light of day. That's the fun part, is that people are using it, right? And I think that's what's interesting is, I don't know that we've still cracked what's the best user interface for every user in a corporation with lots of different jobs, right? I mean, that's why we keep doing things like client server and ChatGPT and sort of what works. I mean, we all remember they tried like natural language recognition back in the 80s and early 90s, and oh man, was that bad. It just didn't work. And that was always can we put the information in the hands of the users? And that was the whole business intelligence thing was, can we get decision making down to the line level as opposed to the manager level on it? In some ways we cracked that. In some ways we haven't. I mean, in some ways we're still trying to get that exactly right? Because at the end of the day, that's going to make you efficient.
There's no shortage of opportunities. I'm still frustrated every time I go to the airport and my flight that's 3 hours late still says it's on time. So
yeah, I think that's.
But the plane hasn't arrived yet. So
yeah, I think that's more. That's more the airline's policy of not caring about their users and providing an interface, right?
Like, I can't just blame the UI on that one.
Trust me, I've had those with like, you're saying we're taking off in 5 minutes, but the inbound plane isn't here yet.
Isn't even here yet, right?
And it'll be 10 minutes for them to unload. When is a plane taking 10 minutes to unload and turn around? Never in your life. So, and unfortunately, I'm the kind of guy who's like, I just want you to be honest with me and tell you, we both know that this flight's at least an hour late. I just want you to say it, but they won't say it. I think it's like
clear system opportunity there.
There is. They probably have the data. In fact, now we all have it on our phone. I'm like, I'm looking at the tail number of the inbound. It's not even in range.
Exactly.
And they just look at it.
Tie these together, damn it.
Nick is, I don't think they want to. So between the three of Jen, Rob, Richard, so talk to me about where do we see CNX going now that we got this part of the whole Izzy and Parker Gale family? Talk to me. Where do you guys see the vision, and what's next in terms of both the overall plan and what you plan to do with the product? I'll start with you, Jen, because you get your headphones in.
Yeah, my old-fashioned wired headset that never fails me.
Same thing.
So we need to continue growing the team to support the customer base that we have today. And we also want to invest in growing the technology, like Richard mentioned, on the Z platform. But beyond that, there are some additional acquisitions that make sense for CNX that could become functions on the Valence platform, so that as you're building your really cool modern app on Valence, you can add in these other functions that would serve the developer quite well. But they could also be used as standalone utilities on their own. So it's further building out with M&A, but it's also the organic roadmap where customers have requests for getting the software to do certain things that they would like, and then serving the customers as best as we can with formal tech support teams and customer success teams and robust sales team and lots of engineers to make the magic happen.
Well, it's a very cool product. If you haven't seen it, it's a very cool product, and you guys have done an amazing job architecting it. So it fits so well into the into the IBM platform. I mean, as you mentioned earlier, Richard, like some of the stuff they did in the old days, trying these screen scrapers, like this is bad. Like this is not an improvement over what they had. So
Yeah.
I think the vision is right.
And one of the cool things too is it's still actively developed. Like we put out new releases every month with sometimes new little features here and there, sometimes big features. But if you look at our competitors, like maybe the last release was like 2 years ago or 18 months ago or something, so we're actively doing new development. And this primarily evolves out of doing professional services. So we're doing projects with our customers. We're hearing their feedback. A lot of times we'll hear, oh, well, it would be nice if Valence did this or did that, or maybe it's a case of, hey, we have to do some custom development to do something that Valence doesn't do out of the box, but why don't we not do the custom development and just add that to the core product, give the customer an update, and then we have that feature for everybody. A lot of new features come out that way. So there's a real benefit to us having a professional services arm because that really informs what the new features are in the product, and it really helps drive this improvement cycle. And if I could just, I would agree with what Jen said about the future. I think, yeah, we have a certain TAM, a total addressable market that we've been looking at for IBMI, but we don't really have a big sales reach right now or big sales organization. So I really feel like with just a little bit of effort, we could really increase the TAM to the Z and even a lot more on the IBMI side of the power system equation than we have been able to reach so far, just through international partnerships, et cetera.
So it's with that in mind, if you got listeners that are listening to this, we always call it the ideal customer profile. So if a customer's got a certain kind of problem today, what's the ideal problem that they call you and say, I need Valence, I need you guys. Like, what's the compelling event for them, if you will?
If you have an IBMI system and you're still using green screens and you want to do something better, or even if you've tried a modernization project in the past, you'd be surprised at how many customers come to us and say, look, we've tried things and they didn't work and it failed. Okay. But they look at Valence and you can be successful very quickly. So within a very short period of time if you can do anything useful with it in the trial period. You get 30-day trial, you try it out. A lot of times we help customers do a proof of concept application. We do that at no cost for customers in the first 30 days. And so basically, if you have an IBMI and you want to have a better user interface for old applications, you really should check Valence out. It's obviously this is going to sound self-serving, but I think it's the best thing out there. But I really believe that.
Well, look, I've seen a lot of application development, and we did some of that live during our sort of due diligence first, and we thought the product was amazing. So I totally completely agree with you, and I do think we're coming out of a lot of both on the Z and the I side, poorly implemented upgrades. Some of these other platforms, like if you look at old Sun Solaris or Vaxes, whatever, those are mostly gone. I mean, there's people who are running some hardware to keep those things alive, but they're getting off them. They're not getting off the Z and the I platform. But we've seen a lot of, we'll convert all the RPG code to Java because young people will want to learn Java, right? Well, now, how many people want to learn Java? First of all, they didn't go very well. And how many people are, we forget now Java is 30 years old. Like, it's not going to work. I mean, I think freeform RPG has helped on the RPG side, attract younger or newer developers. So used to see things a different way. But, the reality of the situation is that this all this massive conversion from one language to another just didn't work. And how could it? I mean, RPG has a model. It works a certain way. Java as a language works a very different way. So you're trying to retrofit one to the other. I think we're going to see a lot more of those with people that think they can simply, run a LLM against their code base and it will produce fully functioning, code in a different language or in a different environment. I think that's going to be one of those you run it through once and you spend the rest of your life debugging those problems. Like, I'm not sure that's a job anybody really wants.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, we are.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
I just wanted to say I want to give IBM some props here, like in the last 5 years, 7 years time frame. They've really done a lot of work to allow open source software to run on the IBM I
Yes. Yep.
and Z as well. Like we're doing a lot of projects where we might integrate a Node.js tool that's running right on the IBM I itself, so you don't have to have a separate server or anything, and that might interact with Valence activities to generate certain printouts or other functions. And there's just so many libraries you can plug into that. And the Node.js is just one thing, but like a lot of people think that IBM I, the old AS400, it's just for old green screen applications and it can't do anything. But it truly is the current ones are truly modern platforms that can do almost anything other servers can do.
And the price performance is, it's gotten pretty redonkulous. I mean,
Yeah.
You can get in for 15 grand. I mean, that was one of the problems years ago was if you're a software developer without access to, your own machine or timeshare, and timeshares you didn't always get, in your instance, you always get the permissions that you needed. Now you can do it in the cloud, but you could also get a box far cheaper. I think they made the entry price. I mean, now I know, Jen, their Z series mainframe entry prices aren't quite at that level, but you can get started on the iPlatform, I think, where you couldn't even 10 years ago. Like it was just too expensive to just get your first one, but not now.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I've tried to convince my wife that I could use one in my office for Christmas, and it's gone nowhere. The executive house committee has not really shown any interest in that project.
Richard might be able to let you borrow his.
Yeah, I don't want to borrow it. You know how you want your own. You just want your own. You want to be able to pet it. You want to see the box behind you.
All right.
Well, welcome to the Parker Gale family. We are so glad to have you as part of this team. We're super excited about Izzy Software, and we're onward and upward. Thanks for being our guest today.
Thanks, Jim.
And we look forward to working together.
We're thrilled as well, and thanks for having us on. It was a lot of fun.
Ciao for now.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks.
Go Whopper.
From the heart of Chicago to all over the globe, couple private equity geniuses, they share what they know. They love to mess with technology where the future is sink or swim. It's the Private Equity Funcast with Devin and Jim. Technology issues and middle market PE-backed companies, they bicker with each other and they don't take themselves too seriously. It's not venture capital, it's private equity. It's the Private Equity Funcast. Pour yourself a drink and have a seat. It's the Private Equity Funcast. That equity is private. If PE excites you, let it show and do not hide it. Devin and Jim.